The soft hum of the cargo ship's engines was the only sound James Miller heard as he guided his vessel through the dark expanse between Mars and Earth. The stars twinkled silently against the black backdrop of space, a view he never tired of even after 5 years of making this supply run. A red light flashed on his console, breaking his peaceful moment. The radar had picked up something unusual. A small ship drifting without power about 50,000 kilometers off his planned route. James checked his cargo manifest. He was ahead of schedule, and space law required all pilots to investigate potential distress signals. "Computer, scan the vessel," he commanded, adjusting his course. The computer chirped in response, sending out scanning beams toward the mysterious craft. Unknown design. No Earth or Mars registration detected. Hull damage present. One life sign detected. Weak but stable. James sat up straighter in his pilot's chair. An alien ship. His heart began to race. Humanity had yet to make official first contact with any alien species, though there had been rumors of strange ships at the edges of the solar system. He brought his ship alongside the damaged vessel. It was smaller than his cargo ship, sleek and silver with elegant curves that no human engineer had yet managed to create. A large hole had been torn in its side, likely from weapons fire. James put on his spacesuit and made sure his emergency medical kit was secure. "Computer, maintain position, and keep scanning for other ships," he ordered before entering the airlock. Using his suit's thrusters, he crossed the short distance between the ships. The hole in the hull was just large enough for him to enter carefully. His helmet lights illuminated the interior, revealing a cockpit unlike anything he had ever seen. And there, slumped in what appeared to be the pilot's seat, was the ship's occupant. James's breath caught in his throat. The alien was humanoid but clearly not human. Her skin was a soft purple color, and what looked like fine scales covered her arms. She appeared to be female, wearing what seemed to be a torn research uniform. She was injured. Dark blue liquid that he assumed was blood was seeping from a wound in her side. Her eyes were closed, but the slight movement of her chest showed she was still breathing. James moved closer, pulling out his medical scanner. "Hello," he said softly, though he knew she probably couldn't understand him. "I'm here to help." The alien's eyes snapped open, revealing golden irises with vertical pupils. She jerked back in surprise, then winced in pain. "Easy, easy," James said, raising his hands to show he meant no harm. "I'm here to help you. You're hurt." The alien woman watched him carefully, then reached for something on her belt. James tensed, but she pulled out a small device and spoke into it. After a moment, his suit's radio crackled with translated words. "Thank you for stopping," she said, her voice weak but clear through the translation device. "But you must leave quickly. They will return." "Who will return? What happened to you?" "Raiders," she managed to say. "They attacked my research vessel. They want my work, my discoveries. I escaped, but they followed. Please, you must." A new alarm blared from both their ships. 3 large vessels had just appeared on radar, moving fast toward their position. "They're here," she whispered, fear evident in her voice. James made a quick decision. "I'm getting you out of here. Can you move?" She nodded weakly. With careful movements, he helped her out of her chair. She was lighter than he expected, making it easier to support her as they moved toward the hole in the hull. "My research data," she said suddenly, reaching for a small crystal embedded in her ship's console. James helped her retrieve it before they made their way to his ship. As they entered his airlock, the first shots from the approaching raiders lit up the darkness of space. James knew that the next few minutes would change his life forever, if they managed to survive them. The story continues in Part 2. James sealed the airlock just as another blast rocked his cargo ship. His new alien passenger stumbled, and he caught her before she could fall. "Computer, full power to engines and shields," he shouted, helping the injured alien to the cockpit. The ship's computer responded immediately, diverting power from non-essential systems. "Your ship. It's not meant for combat," the alien said through her translator as James strapped her into the co-pilot's seat. Dark blue blood was still seeping from her wound. "No, but it's faster than it looks," James replied, jumping into the pilot's chair. "I've made some unofficial modifications." He grabbed the controls and pushed the engines to full thrust, sending them rocketing toward the asteroid belt. The Raiders' ships opened fire again. Energy beams sliced through the space where James's ship had been moments before. He weaved between the attacks, his years of experience flying through dangerous cargo routes now proving invaluable. "I'm James Miller," he said, pulling a sharp turn that made the ship's frame groan. "Since we might die together, what's your name?" "Lyra," she answered, gripping her seat as the ship shuddered. "I'm a medical researcher. The data they want. It could save millions of lives." But in their hands, a warning light flashed. One of the Raider ships was closing in fast. "Hold on tight," James warned. He cut the main engines and fired the maneuvering thrusters, making his ship spin 180 degrees while maintaining its original course. In that brief moment, he fired the forward guns at their pursuers' engines. The shots connected. The Raider ship's engine flared and died, sending it tumbling away into space. "Impressive," Lyra said, her golden eyes wide. "But there are still two more." James turned the ship back around and pushed the engines even harder. They were approaching the asteroid belt now, their best chance for escape. "Computer, plot the densest route through the belt," he ordered, "and give me a damage report. Hull integrity at 82%, shield power at 60%, weapons at 45% charge. Main engines operating at 118% of recommended maximum." Another blast caught the edge of their shield, making the entire ship shake. James cursed under his breath. The Raiders' weapons were far more powerful than anything he'd encountered before. "They're using ion pulse cannons," Lyra explained, checking the ship's sensors. "One direct hit will disable your systems." "Then we won't let them hit us," James said, guiding the ship into the asteroid belt. He weaved between massive rocks, using them as cover from the Raiders' attacks. Lyra worked on the co-pilot's console, her fingers moving quickly despite her injury. "I've adjusted your sensors to detect their energy signatures better. They're splitting up, trying to trap us." James nodded, sweat beading on his forehead as he threaded the ship through an increasingly narrow path between asteroids. The Raiders were good, but they were in larger ships. They couldn't follow his exact route without risking collision. "There." Lyra suddenly pointed at the sensor display. "A mineral-rich asteroid field ahead. The deposits will interfere with their targeting systems." James altered course immediately, diving deeper into the belt. The Raiders fired desperately, trying to stop them before they reached the mineral field. One blast exploded an asteroid near them, sending fragments pinging off their hull. They plunged into the mineral field, and the Raiders' shots became wild, missing by wider margins. But their victory was short-lived. A warning alarm screamed through the cockpit. "Power surge in the port engine," the computer announced. "Failure imminent." "No, no, no," James muttered, trying to compensate. "Not now." The ship lurched violently. Lyra checked her console, her face grim. "The last blast must have damaged it. We're losing power." As the port engine began to fail, James realized they were about to face an impossible choice: try to limp away on one engine, or hide in the asteroid field with no power at all. Either way, the Raiders would eventually find them. Unless they could think of something else. And fast. The story continues in Part 3. James's mind raced as warning lights flashed across his console. The port engine was dying, and the Raiders would find them soon. He looked at Lyra, who was pressing a hand against her wound while studying the ship's readings. "How good are you with engines?" he asked, making a risky decision. "I understand the basic principles," she replied. "But your technology is different from ours." "Different or not, I need your help." James unbuckled his harness. "Take the controls. Keep us moving between the asteroids, but stay close to the big ones for cover." Lyra moved to the pilot's seat, her movements careful but precise despite her injury. James headed toward the engine room, grabbing a toolkit on his way. The engine room was hot and filled with smoke. The port engine's power core was pulsing with an angry red light. James could see where the Raider's blast had penetrated the hull, damaging crucial power conduits. "Computer, how long until complete engine failure?" "Port engine will fail in approximately 4 minutes. Hull breach detected. Radiation levels rising." James gritted his teeth. The damaged section was leaking radiation into the ship. He had one spacesuit in the nearby locker, the same one he'd used to rescue Lyra. His comm unit crackled. "James," Lyra's voice came through. "They're getting closer. Our erratic movement is confusing their targeting, but the damaged engine is leaving an energy trail they can follow." "I can fix this," he replied, "but it's going to get worse before it gets better." He opened the locker and pulled out the spacesuit. "Lyra, when I tell you, cut power to both engines completely. That will leave us defenseless. Trust me." James looked at the spacesuit in his hands. The radiation levels meant whoever went in to fix the engine would need protection. But there was only one suit, and Lyra was already injured. Without hesitation, he walked back to the cockpit and handed her the suit. "Put this on. Now." Her golden eyes widened as she understood. "No, you'll die from the radiation. The repair will take less than 5 minutes. I can handle that much exposure." He helped her into the suit, his movements urgent but gentle. "You're already hurt, and your research needs to survive. This is the only way." Before she could protest further, he sealed her helmet and returned to the engine room. "Cut power on my mark." James positioned himself near the damaged section. Tools ready. His skin tingled as radiation washed over him. Now, the engines went silent. James immediately began working. His hands steady despite knowing every second exposed him to more radiation. He reconnected power conduits, bypassed damaged sections, and sealed the worst of the hull breach with emergency patches. His vision began to blur. Sweat poured down his face, and his stomach churned with nausea, the first signs of radiation sickness. But he kept working. "James, your life signs are critical." Lyra's voice was filled with concern. "You need to get out of there." "Almost done," he gasped. The final connection sparked under his hands. "Try the engines now." The power core hummed back to life, its color changing from red to a healthy blue. Both engines roared, stronger than before. James stumbled away from the repaired section, his legs weak. He barely made it back to the cockpit before collapsing. Through darkening vision, he saw Lyra piloting the ship with remarkable skill, weaving through asteroids while the raiders fell behind. Her spacesuit gleamed in the dim light. "Stay with me, James," she said, reaching out to check his pulse with her suited hand. "My people are coming. They're close. You just need to hold on." He tried to respond, but his body was shutting down from the radiation exposure. The last thing he saw was Lyra's golden eyes through her helmet visor, filled with determination and something else, a fierce promise that she wouldn't let his sacrifice be in vain. As consciousness faded, James managed a small smile. At least he'd saved her and her vital research. That was worth any price. The story continues in Part 4. The world came to James in fragments, voices speaking in strange languages, the sensation of being moved, a cool liquid flowing through his veins, but most clearly he remembered the golden eyes watching over him. Lyra hadn't left his side since his collapse. She'd managed to outrun the raiders, keeping the ship steady until her people's rescue vessels arrived. Now, in the medical bay of their advanced ship, she worked tirelessly with her fellow medical researchers to save the human who had sacrificed everything for her. "His cellular structure is breaking down," one of the alien doctors reported, checking readings that floated in holographic displays above James's bed. "The radiation damage is extensive." Lyra studied the data, her purple-scaled fingers moving through the holographic images. "His DNA repair mechanisms are similar to ours," she said, her translator converting her words to English, even though James drifted in and out of consciousness. "The research data he helped me save. We can use it." She pulled the crystal from her torn uniform, inserting it into a medical console. Complex molecular structures appeared in the air above them. "It's dangerous," another doctor warned. "The cellular regeneration process has never been tested on human physiology." "He's dying anyway," Lyra countered, her golden eyes fierce. "The radiation will kill him within hours if we don't try." James tried to focus on their words, but pain racked his body. Every breath felt like fire in his lungs. He could feel his cells dying, poisoned by the radiation he'd endured to save Lyra and her research. Through the haze of pain, he felt a cool hand touch his forehead. Lyra's face appeared above him, her expression gentle but determined. "James," she said softly, "I'm going to try something. It might save you, but it's never been done before. Do you trust me?" He managed a weak nod. After everything they'd been through, trust wasn't even a question. Lyra turned to her medical team. "Begin the procedure. Full cellular regeneration protocol, modified for human biology." The medical bay burst into activity. Strange devices were positioned around James's bed. Lyra worked quickly, programming the treatment parameters while monitoring his vital signs. "First phase beginning," she announced, introducing regenerative nanites. A silver liquid flowed through the tubes connected to James's arms. The moment it entered his bloodstream, every nerve in his body screamed. His back arched off the bed as pain unlike anything he'd ever felt tore through him. "His heart rate is critical," one of the doctors shouted. "Keep him stable," Lyra ordered. "The nanites are rewriting his damaged cells. Pain is expected." She grabbed James's hand, letting him squeeze it as waves of agony washed over him. "Stay with me, James. Fight through it." Hours passed in a blur of pain and strange sensations. James felt like his body was being taken apart and rebuilt, molecule by molecule. In a way it was. Finally, the pain began to fade. James's consciousness surfaced from the depths of agony, and he became aware of his surroundings again. The first thing he noticed was that he could breathe easily. The burning in his lungs was gone. He opened his eyes. Lyra was still there, looking exhausted but relieved. The medical displays above him showed readings he didn't understand, but they were clearly much better than before. "Did it work?" he asked, surprised by how strong his voice sounded. Lyra smiled. "See for yourself." She held up a mirror. James looked at his reflection and gasped. His skin had a slight purple tinge, and tiny scales, almost invisible unless you looked closely, covered his arms. But more than that, he felt different. Stronger, like his entire body had been upgraded. "What did you do to me?" "We saved you," Lyra explained. "Using my research, we regenerated your damaged cells. But the process changed you. You're the first successful human-alien hybrid in history." Before James could process this information, alarms began blaring throughout the ship. A voice spoke over the intercom in the alien's language, and Lyra's expression turned grave. "The Raiders," she translated. "They found us again. And this time, they've brought reinforcements." The story continues in Part 5. James stood up from the medical bed, surprised by how natural it felt. His body moved with a fluid grace he'd never possessed before, and his mind felt sharper, clearer. "You should rest," Lyra said, but her voice held more curiosity than concern. "The transformation is still stabilizing." "No time," James replied, watching through the medical bay's window as enemy ships appeared out of hyperspace. "Those raiders want your research, and now they'll want me too, won't they?" Lyra nodded. "You're living proof that our regeneration technology works across species. To them, you're as valuable as the research itself." The ship shuddered as the first attacks hit their shields. James moved to a computer terminal, his fingers instinctively understanding the alien interface. "How many ships are we facing?" "7 raiders," Lyra answered, watching him with amazement. "The nanites in your system. They're helping you understand our technology." James grinned. "They're doing more than that. I can feel it. Where's the nearest weapons station?" Before Lyra could answer, 3 armed alien security officers burst into the medical bay. They spoke rapidly in their language, gesturing for Lyra to evacuate. "They want to get us to the escape pods," she translated. "Standard protocol for civilian research vessels under attack." James shook his head. "Your ship's bigger, but those raiders are military grade. They'll catch any escape pods before they reach safety." He turned to the security team. "Take me to your defense control room." After a quick discussion with Lyra, they agreed. As they ran through the corridors, James marveled at his new abilities. He could hear the ship's engines humming at specific frequencies, could sense power fluctuations in the walls, could even feel the subtle artificial gravity adjustments as the ship maneuvered. The defense control room was a circular chamber filled with holographic displays. The ship's crew worked frantically at various stations, trying to coordinate their defense. "Let me help," James said. Understanding flowed through him as he looked at their systems. "Your shields are strong, but you're using a predictable pattern. The raiders have figured it out." He stepped up to the main control interface. His fingers danced across the controls, remembering how the raiders had attacked his cargo ship. They expect research vessels to be defensive. So let's surprise them. The ship's shield configuration changed under his commands. Instead of trying to block every shot, they now shifted to deflect energy weapons fire back at the attackers. 2 raider ships were hit by their own weapons, their engines disabled. "Remarkable," one of the alien officers said through a translator. "Where did you learn our combat systems?" "I didn't," James replied, still working. "I just understand them now. Like they're part of me." He looked at Lyra. "Whatever you did to save me, it did more than just heal the radiation damage." Another blast rocked the ship. The raiders were adapting, changing their attack pattern. But James was already moving ahead of them, his enhanced mind processing combat strategies faster than any normal human could. "Their ships are faster," he explained as he worked. "But this research vessel has more power. They think we'll keep running." He input a new series of commands. Time to show them why that's a mistake. The research vessel's massive engines roared. Instead of fleeing, they turned to face the raiders head-on. Energy that had been devoted to running was now diverted to weapons and shields. "James," Lyra said softly, "you've become something new, something that's never existed before." He nodded, watching as their counterattack sent the raiders scrambling. The first human-alien hybrid. And maybe, he smiled as another raider ship's weapons went dark under their assault. Maybe that's exactly what both our peoples need. As the battle turned in their favor, James knew this was just the beginning. He had been transformed into something unprecedented, and the implications would change everything. For humanity, for Lyra's people, and for the galaxy itself. The story continues in Part 6. The Raiders' fleet scattered into the darkness of space, their remaining ships jumping to hyperspace after James's unexpected counterattack. On the research vessel's bridge, celebrations erupted among the alien crew, but James's attention was focused on the captured raider ships floating dead in space. "We should board them," he said to Lyra, his enhanced senses detecting power signatures still active in the disabled vessels. "Something doesn't feel right about this attack." Lyra nodded, her golden eyes studying the tactical displays. "I agree. Raiders don't usually have military-grade weapons or organized tactics like these did." Within an hour, James led a boarding party onto the largest captured ship. His new hybrid body moved effortlessly in zero gravity, and he could read the Raiders' control systems as easily as he had the research vessels. "Here," he called out, accessing the ship's main computer. "They weren't just after your regeneration research, Lyra. They were hired to get it." The data revealed a complex web of connections. The raiders were working for someone with deep resources and advanced technology. As James dug deeper into their communications, his enhanced mind piecing together fragments of encrypted data, a disturbing picture emerged. "There's a group," he explained to Lyra, "and the boarding team. They're collecting advanced medical research from multiple species. Your regeneration breakthrough was just their latest target." Lyra examined the data herself, her expression growing serious. "These encryption codes, they're military. High-level military. Not just any military," James added, his fingers moving across the interface. "Look at these transit routes. They all lead to a secret facility in neutral space. Someone's trying to develop biological weapons using stolen research." The revelation sent shockwaves through the alien command structure. Within hours, the research vessel's captain had contacted their homeworld. James watched as their government officials appeared in holographic form, their attention fixed on him as much as the intelligence he'd uncovered. "You understand what this means," one of the officials said through the translator. "This conspiracy threatens multiple species, including humanity." James stood straighter, aware that his unique nature made him both a bridge and a symbol. "Then let this be an opportunity. My transformation proves that our species can work together in ways we never imagined." The officials conferred among themselves before reaching a decision. "We agree. This threat requires a unified response. And you, James Miller, represent something unprecedented, living proof that humans and our people can become more together than they are apart. We propose an exchange," another official continued. "We will share our medical technology with Earth, starting with the regeneration breakthroughs that saved your life. In return, we ask for humanity's help in stopping these biological weapon developers." James looked at Lyra, who smiled encouragingly. "Your choice to save me," she said, "it's led to something greater than either of us could have imagined." He thought about the changes in his body, the way he could now bridge the gap between two species. His sacrifice had opened doors that might have remained closed for centuries. "I accept," James said, "but with one condition." He gestured to the captured raider ships. "Let me lead the investigation. My new abilities make me uniquely qualified to track down whoever's behind this." The officials agreed readily, seeing the advantage of having someone who could understand and operate technology from both species. As the diplomatic arrangements were made, James stood with Lyra in the observation deck, watching stars streak by as they headed toward Earth. His slightly purple-tinted skin reflected the starlight, the tiny scales catching the glow like diamonds. "Are you ready?" Lyra asked, "to show humanity what you've become?" James smiled, feeling the power of his enhanced body and mind working in perfect harmony. "I'm ready to show them what we can all become, together." The story continues in Part 7. 6 months had passed since James Miller became the first human-alien hybrid, and Earth would never be the same. He stood at the podium in the United Nations Assembly Hall, his slightly purple-tinted skin and golden-flecked eyes a testament to how far humanity had come. Behind him, holographic displays showed the progress of the joint medical facilities that now dotted Earth's surface. Thousands of people had already benefited from the shared medical technology, though none had undergone the complete transformation that James had experienced. "The partnership between our species has exceeded all expectations," James addressed the assembly. "But our work isn't finished." He gestured to Lyra, who stood beside him as the chief medical advisor for the collaboration. Their investigation into the biological weapons conspiracy had uncovered cells on 12 different worlds, each now being systematically shut down. "Together, we've prevented 3 major attacks," James continued. "The same technology that saved my life is now saving millions, and we're just getting started." After the speech, James and Lyra boarded their new ship, a hybrid vessel that combined the best of both species' technology. It had become their mobile command center as they continued their mission across the stars. The latest intel came in, Lyra said, bringing up a holographic map of the galaxy. "We've tracked the conspiracy's leadership to a base in the outer rim. They're desperate now, which makes them dangerous. James nodded, feeling the ship's systems through his enhanced connection to the technology. They should be desperate. They never expected their attack on your research vessel to lead to this. He gestured at the map, highlighting the network of allied worlds that had joined their cause. What started as a partnership between two species had evolved into something greater. A coalition dedicated to sharing medical advances and protecting all sentient life. Command confirms we're clear to proceed, Lyra said, checking their mission parameters. The joint fleet will follow our lead. James smiled at her. Their relationship had evolved too, from rescuer and rescued to partners in every sense. They understood each other in ways no purely human or alien couple could, their differences becoming strengths rather than barriers. The ship's engines hummed to life as they prepared to jump to hyperspace. Through the viewport, James could see Earth growing smaller, the beautiful blue planet that had given birth to humanity, now taking its first steps into a larger universe. "Remember when you found me in that damaged ship?" Lyra asked, her golden eyes twinkling. "Did you ever imagine it would lead to all this?" "Not in my wildest dreams," James replied, watching as their allied fleet assembled around them. Ships of various designs and origins, all united in a common cause. I just wanted to help someone in trouble. And that simple choice changed everything. Lyra activated the hyperspace drive, ready to make history again. James looked at his hands, the subtle scales catching the light. He wasn't just a hybrid of two species anymore. He had become a symbol of what was possible when different peoples chose to work together, to share their strengths and overcome their differences. "Always ready," he said, as the stars began to stretch into streaks of light. "There's a whole galaxy out there, filled with people who need help. And thanks to what happened between us, we can show them a better way." The ship jumped to hyperspace, carrying them toward their next mission. Behind them, Earth continued its transformation, growing into its new role as a center of interstellar cooperation and medical advancement. James Miller had shed his blood to save an alien woman, and in return, he'd received something beyond imagination. Not just a transformed body or enhanced abilities, but the chance to help transform the galaxy itself. As their ship raced through hyperspace, James knew that this wasn't the end of their story. It was just the beginning of humanity's greatest adventure. The end.